I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching Tesla Time News.
Episode 177.
On Now You Know.
Brought to you as always by our amazing Patreon patrons. They help support the show and they get some pretty great perks like end credits. So check those out at the end of the show. And if you want that, you can head over to patreon.com and support us.
And as Amazon associates, we earn from qualifying purchases. The link is down below in the show notes.
And we're brought to you by ecoware.us. We have new designs uploaded every week. This is a great way to start positive conversations with carbon negative products.
Hey, what are you wearing there?
Yeah, look at this. Model Y.
Get that conversation going.
That conversation started. People are going to be like, that looks like a Model 3. And you'll be like, it's a Model Y.
And I'm super excited this weekend. We'll be in Austin, Texas with the whole gang of Fully Charged Live, along with our buddies Gally and Rich and Joe and all of them. So we're really excited. If you still haven't got your tickets and you want to go.
This is your absolute last chance.
You got to use our code.
You can use, you can buy the tickets full price if you want to. But yeah, you can't put off buying the tickets because literally this weekend is the show in Austin, Texas. So
we'll see you there.
We'll see you there.
So what is this about hackers discovering new Tesla hardware?
Yeah, so they're not really, it's not like a cave exploration or anything, but it is kind of like a digital sort of cave. So internet hacker Green.
Oh, yeah, we know him.
We know him.
He's a white hat hacker.
White hat hacker, right? He's been exploring the latest update that Tesla just rolled out, and he's been looking through the firmware, and he's discovered what he thinks are some possible hardware changes that are going to be coming to some of the Tesla cars.
What did he find?
So he has a list here in a tweet. He says, an integrated inductive phone charger for Model S and Model X vehicles.
Oh, cool.
So you pop your phone on there if it has it, and supposedly it'll charge up, and it'll be included with the car, maybe, potentially, or maybe it's an add-on. We have no idea.
Okay.
The next is 2 new Model S and Model X battery types in several configurations. He says not yet sure of the capacity to be determined.
That's big news.
That could be...
This is starting to point towards something bigger. Continue.
Okay. A new lumbar feature, which he conjectures to mean new seats, possibly.
Oh, okay.
New charge port type.
What?
So I don't know if this is specifically for the Model S and X. Everything else has been for that.
Okay.
And then new suspension version.
So this seems to be pointing to a refresh.
So Green continued on Twitter. He said, due to firmware timing, Tesla seems to have realized no matter what they do, stuff leaks through firmware. So they froze releases on week 40. So week 40 of 2019, and just backported absolute necessary stuff to limit leakage. And now, past the new year, this must be hardware they put into cars now/very soon, so cannot avoid it. Which basically means they've been hiding all of this stuff that they've been working on in the background because they know that these leaks would be coming out. So they've been hiding it. But this means that instead of us being like, well, we don't know when it's coming, in Green's eyes, it seems like it's going to be happening very soon because they're hiding as much as they can and releasing as to the last possible moment, which means that the timing could be a lot closer.
Right, and the reason he knows this stuff is because the new version 2020.2, which means it's the second week, was just released. So let's just speculate here for a second. So Tesla obviously going to be rolling out some new features. This points to a refresh of the Model S and X. That's just conjecture. But if it's true, Q1 and Q2 is typically when Tesla has the most trouble. Well, most auto manufacturers do because it's the slow seasons. If they want to be profitable for all 4 quarters in a row, which we think Tesla wants to be, not only does it get them into the S&P 500, but it also starts to show the world that they can be profitable year-round. So if they want to be profitable, especially in Q1, which is the toughest quarter, they're going to need to probably do something, pull some little lever. What if, speculation alert, what if it was a plaid version of the Model S?
Right. And in thinking about the plaid version of the Model S, I think that a lot of people think that this would just kind of take the place of the performance. But I think that you're adding an extra motor, there's a whole bunch of extra complicated bits, and then, if we're talking about maybe new battery architecture, whether that be 2170s or some brand new kind of magical battery, I think we're going to be looking at a huge price jump to get to the Plaid.
Yeah, I think you could charge somewhere around $150,000 for the Plaid version, and I think you'd immediately get about 2,000 people right out of the gate to sign up for that. So that's
at least.
So assuming that would be a margin of about $75,000 per car, we're looking at about $150 million of profit on the books if they could do something like that in Q1, maybe Q1, Q2. I think that might be a smart move because it's just instantly opens up some more cash possibilities for very little investment on Tesla's part.
And, you might be saying, but Zach and Jesse, we're already so far into Q1. But keep in mind that we still haven't had the Q4 earnings call. This could be one of those bombshells that Elon likes to drop. I would say either, Plaid Model S or maybe Model Y. It could be one of those two things, either Model Y or it could be both too.
And the earnings call is this week, which would be a great place to do it. And we're going to be covering that on In Depth this Friday. So yeah, like we mentioned, over-the-air update 2020.4 is rolling out to Tesla owners in China with some new games that appear to be for the Chinese market only, like Happy Mahjong and Fight Landlords and Happy Upgrade. Not sure what those are.
Right. It'll also include a new weather and air quality app.
That's cool.
That is very cool.
And then there's a new feature that allows Chinese owners to contact Tesla service through WeChat, and that's the QR code right there. You just, I guess, click on that with your phone, and you automatically get contact with service.
Yeah, so this is an interesting way to conduct service in China. I mean, like I know anything about it.
So we just found out about this really cool new thing called TeslaTheater.com. So Aaron reached out to us and he said, I felt there was a gap between what Tesla Theater built into version 10 had offered and what was truly possible for us end users to experience. I recognize that Tesla is heads down on so many development aspects that they may not have the resources to put on something like this in the short term. With this little workaround to pop to full screen via a redirect was cool to figure out, and once I did, it totally made sense to make a simple launchpad into many of our favorite streaming providers. I have many plans for this in the future and will continually improve the site service in the coming weeks and months. So if you'd like to, first of all, check this out, go to TeslaTheater.com in your browser.
Right. And so what it's going to do is it's going to take you to a little screen. You click go to full screen. It's going to take you to what is essentially, this is probably wrong, but like a broken YouTube link. And it'll say go to site. You click on the go to site. And because you're in the YouTube app, you are going to be able to open up a browser in the YouTube app, which is in full screen, which now means that you have a browser in full screen. So this only works while you're in park because it works through the YouTube app through Tesla's theater mode. But this changes the game entirely when we're talking about anything to do that's online. Because, I mean, the browser, while it's not the fastest, it is fairly powerful in the Model 3. You're able to do quite a lot of things. It's able to play video and all kinds of different stuff.
Especially if you're on fast Wi-Fi.
Right. And now you can do it in full screen, which makes a huge difference if you're searching for restaurants or, surfing the web. Whatever you're trying to do, you can now do it through Tesla Theater.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the fact that when I use Google Maps in the car, it still, takes up maybe 2/3 of the screen, but something about getting to use the whole screen makes it just far more usable for me. Maybe it's my eyesight. I don't know.
Right. And because it's Google Maps and you can actually sign into Google Maps. It's no longer Tesla's Google Maps. You can have saved spots. You can switch between different views. It's a lot easier to find businesses, restaurants and that kind of thing. So it is a huge, huge upgrade. Plus, you can get some streaming services that you can't get with Tesla Theater. So you can actually have Disney Plus or whatever else kind of streaming services you want right on your car.
Yeah. I mean, so Aaron said if you want to reach out to him to give him feedback, it's feedback@teslatheater.com. And he just told us that there's more stuff coming soon. And he just added, since the launch last weekend, feedback form so that you can give him ideas, adding of Fubo and removal of Sling, and a bunch of other features. So yeah, go check it out. If you've got ideas, let him know. But this is really cool. Thank you, Aaron, for doing this.
Yeah. So if you've been living under a rock, totally okay. But that's probably why you're watching the show. Third Row Tesla, the podcast, did a interview with Elon Musk.
Yeah. a really cool 2-hour interview where they got into just let him talk. He talked for 90% of it. Like, so you got to hear all about things like the Maxwell acquisition and the beginnings of Tesla, stuff that we had never heard before. I urge you to go check it out. You're going to hear about the Zip2 early days and Elon's first jobs when he arrived in North America. You're going to hear from Kimball Musk, who showed up in the middle of the interview. May Musk is sitting in the room, like, correcting Elon sometimes. It's really cool to hear her feedback. You'll hear that Battery and Powertrain Day is a few months from now. And how about this? A discussion of candy monopolies. And I just thought we'd follow up on this. During the interview, Elon just mentioned kind of off the cuff in a joke that, there's a candy monopoly. And they kind of went on a tangent about how the fact there's only a few companies that control almost all the brands. Well, check this out here. This graph is showing that he is correct. There's about 9 to 11 companies that control pretty much every product that you get in a grocery store.
Right. I encourage you, we'll put the link down below to this website that basically maps all of the different brands to all the different things. I think it's just so interesting that he is actually thinking about this stuff. Yeah. He's such a down-to-earth person, and it really carries across when you have a good interview with him, where he's able to kind of relax, talk about what he wants to talk about. So many interviews with Elon are just like, so, electric cars, they're impossible, right? And he has to be like, no, it's really simple, and let me try and explain it to you. And having an interview where that is not part of the question, it's getting to know him a little bit more. So valuable.
Yeah, hats off to Third Row Tesla. And also part 2 is coming up soon, so keep your eyes open for that.
So Tesla is now the second largest auto manufacturer in the world, measured by market capitalization.
They were just third like a month ago.
Right. They've stolen the number 2 spot from Volkswagen. So Toyota is at the top spot with a $200 billion market cap, followed by Tesla with $100 billion market capitalization. So just to explain this is tied to the stock price, right? Market cap is the stock price times the number of shares of the stock. That equals your market cap. So it's a nice way to compare companies in terms of the stock market. Just because stock price doesn't tell you everything, Ford is at like $4 a share, and yet its market capitalization isn't that much lower.
When I was a kid, I used to think that, if your stock was at $10 a share and your stock was at $20 a share, that meant you were worth more. That has nothing to do with it because you have to multiply it by the number of shares available.
Right.
But anyway, this is a good just talking point when you're talking to someone at work and they're like, Tesla, I thought they were going bankrupt. And you're like, well, they're the number 1 car company in the U.S. and Europe by market cap. So speaking of Toyota, which is the number 1 car company, I heard that they had one of their ads banned in Norway. So I don't get it. Were the ads like too raunchy?
No, they were misleading.
How are they misleading?
Well, why don't you try our new self-charging hybrid?
Self-charging?
Absolutely.
Like the cars charge themselves?
They do charge themselves.
Using what? Magic?
Well, the magic of combustion.
Combustion is just burning gasoline.
Right.
That's not...
self-charging. So basically the ads are that it's kind of like an electric car, except that it charges itself.
The scary part about that is a lot of people might start believing in a perpetual motion machine where the car just like is rolling down the road and it just somehow makes its own electricity.
The thing here is it relies on people... I don't know, not questioning enough because people are used to putting gas in cars.
Can I remind people that hybrids are a gas engine in a car that burns the gasoline to make energy, which powers a battery. So it's still getting its power from gasoline.
It's a gas-powered car.
Right.
It can be more efficient.
Exactly. But it's still a gas-burning vehicle.
Right. And that is different than a plug-in hybrid where you can actually plug it in, get a large amount, or in some cases a piddly amount of electric charge to power the car without burning any gasoline, and then at some point you run out of electric charge, you have to turn on this gas generator to power the rest of the car.
And I think this is where so many people have a brain block, because you tell them this is let's say you take a Tesla and you're like, this is a battery powered car. And they're like, where do you put the gas?
Where do you put the gas?
Because they've heard of hybrids for so many years. They're like, well, there has to be a place to put gas.
And so the problem that I have with hybrids is that it's not enough of both technologies, right? Because sure, you can have a big, powerful V8, and it can be very powerful. And so people like V8s because they're powerful. And you can also have an electric car that doesn't burn any gas and is very powerful, like a Tesla. But then if you combine the two technologies of both gas burning and electric power, you have to make so many compromises in order to make a hybrid, unless you want to spend a ton of money to get some kind of like LaFerrari kind of like performance hybrid. You're stuck with this not very powerful, not very efficient compared to an electric car kind of vehicle. Right. And for a while, we just didn't have the batteries to make an electric car, and also no one thought of doing it the way Tesla does it.
But get back to Norway. What did they do?
So they banned the ads because they were so misleading.
Good for them.
Yeah, I mean, here's a quote here. We're not going to read it, but basically what they're saying is that the ad was misleading consumers because they don't mention that this is a gas-powered car, that you have to, it's making it sound like you just kind of let it sit there and it's going to hum, and then you're going to have some kind of, oh, great, now I have more energy. Whereas, the consumer will buy the car, then they're going to have to take it to the gas station.
So VW just installed 9 new 100 kilowatt EV chargers in Wolfsburg, Germany.
Okay, so what?
Well, what's so cool about these chargers is that they also contain 360 kilowatt hour batteries. So in areas where the power grid may not be able to support 100 kilowatts of power, these chargers can charge up their internal battery using a smaller circuit. And also they can utilize recycled EV batteries, giving them a second life. And they can charge up during off-peak hours to help the grid. Now, how does that work?
So first of all, there's the being able to put chargers, high-powered chargers, in a location where you don't have the grid capability to give that much power to anything. Because, you just have a power line, it doesn't have that much power in it. It's a weird way to talk about electricity, but the easiest way to digest in your brain. And it can only give a certain amount of power, but it can give it constantly.
So like you're kind of talking about like if there's a place in a city or a rural area where they could only spare like 40 amps,
right,
you could put in this charger and it would still allow, say, 3 cars to pull in simultaneously and get full 100 kilowatts of juice, even though at any given moment it's only getting 40 amps.
It's similar to kind of like the reservoir in your toilet. Like if you needed to flush your toilet with just the water coming in from that little line, you wouldn't really be able to do it. So that's why you flush the toilet and then you just hear it for like a couple minutes and you're like, what's it doing? Why can't I flush the toilet again? It's because it's filling up the reservoir of water. Same thing here, except with electricity and the batteries. So with a small amount of electricity coming in, because it's not going to be used constantly, you're able to actually charge cars effectively.
Toilet chargers.
It's kind of, yeah, you're dumping a bunch of energy into something and then you're slowly building it back up. And the other advantage of this is it is a grid-tied battery, which you can do anything to. So if there's a high demand on the grid, you can just feed back power to the grid, which will help stabilize it. And you could, there's a whole bunch of really nice things you can do with this.
Yeah, I mean, when the grid is creating excess power, like on a, sunny day with lots of solar being pumped onto the grid, you can store it in these batteries and then use it when there's not much power. It's a perfect solution. Right. And for you guys who are in Wolfsburg, Germany, it's free charging for the next 80 weeks. So get over there. Let's do a review of it for our channel.
Now, is this the most revolutionary thing in the world? No, Tesla has been doing battery-assisted charging in lots of different places. It's just not very obvious because the batteries are off to the side, so you're still looking at the same superchargers. But it is a great idea, and I encourage Volkswagen to continue making these chargers because 9 is not enough.
And speaking of VW, the chief executive of VW, Herbert Diess, he was at Davos this week, and he had an interesting interview with Bloomberg, and he had some really interesting quotes here. He said, "The market valuation tells you something about the future and future expectations. Tesla has a product that basically describes the future of the auto industry, a fully connected electric car. I think Tesla is paving the way. It's modeling something new for the industry. I think we are close to follow. I'm quite optimistic that we can keep the pace with Tesla and probably at some stage overtake. I think it's an open race. I would take Tesla more seriously than Google. The company which adapts fastest and is the most innovative, but also which has enough scale in the new world, will make that race. The future will be electric in the passenger car world for sure. That's pretty clear now. This train is moving. It's gaining speed and getting momentum. For this world, we are preparing. We will see a car that is emission-free, basically. I think 2020 will be a breakthrough year for electric cars."
Wow.
That came from VW's CEO.
We are definitely going to talk more about this, but we are going to talk about it in the Patreon bonus stories. So if you want to, you can head over to Patreon and support us for as little as $1 a month. which is not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you can check this out. So Washington State has a bill that has been introduced to the Senate. This is Senate Bill 6586. And if passed, it would charge electric and hybrid vehicles 3.5 cents per mile to pay for the roads.
Well, that's good. It's good to see that they're figuring out a way that, electrics can help pay for their share of the roads.
Okay, well, first of all, this is electric and hybrid vehicles. Hybrids, I mean, this is a pretty general statement, but as we talked about before, hybrids are gas-powered, which means that they're paying gas tax.
Oh, they're paying twice.
That would be double taxing.
Okay.
And then, second of all, a 3.5 cents per mile is equivalent to a 14 miles per gallon gas guzzler.
Wait,
so
the average car today gets 26.5 miles per gallon.
So this would be equivalent to you driving around a very inefficient car.
Wait, so they're overtaxing electric cars?
Yes, so this bill would overtax electric cars. Now, that's not to say that I don't think that we should figure out some kind of road tax, but a lot of people seem to come at it as if the gas tax has been this perfect miracle way to tax vehicles.
Well, if you're going to do it this way for electrics, why don't you do it this way for all cars and just say 3.5 cents a mile for all cars?
Right.
I don't understand why even divide it.
Right. Why have a gas tax where if you buy a more efficient car, but not a hybrid, you are going to be saving more money? This is a ridiculous bill. It either needs a lot of work or it needs to be thrown out entirely. So if you live in Washington State, we're going to put the link below to this actual bill. You can find out the sponsors of the bill. You can call them up. You can call up your members of your state Senate, and you can get this bill, do whatever you want with it. It's a free country.
Well, AAA is out with a new survey, and let's remind everyone that AAA stands for American Automobile Association. They surveyed 40,000 EV owners. And before we get to the results of the survey, Jesse, I just wanted to ask you, if you were going to do a survey of 40,000 EV owners, do you think you would include Tesla owners? Well, they didn't. So everything you're going to hear in the survey is EV drivers, but not Tesla drivers. So check this out.
Okay.
71% were new owners. And by the way, of those EV owners, 96% said they'd buy another EV.
Wow.
That's awesome.
96%?
Yeah. And this is their first time driving an EV. 87% said EVs are their first choice of transportation in their household. So if they've got two cars, one is ICE and one is EV, 87% said they want to drive the EV first. So then for non-EV drivers, right, AAA asked people who don't drive an EV, they found out that 57% of these non-EV drivers in America worry about running out of charge. And yet, 95% of those surveyed said they never ran out of charge. Now, I just want to point out, I did a little research, 500,000 drivers in 2015 ran out of gas. So you can run out of energy no matter what kind of car you drive.
Of course.
But getting back to the survey, 75% of EV drivers charge their car at home only. I thought that was really interesting.
There's no other place that they charge.
Now, keep in mind, these are non-Tesla owners.
That is interesting.
So then once data was shared with the non-EV drivers who were just saying how much they feared running out of charge, once they told them this fact that 95% of people who drive EVs never ran out of charge, then 77% of the non-EV drivers said they were no longer worried. So all they needed to do basically was educate them, and most of them were like, oh, okay, so it's not a problem? Then it's not a problem.
Wow. So I think that this is a really great study because they didn't interview any Tesla drivers, because 40,000 EV owners who aren't Tesla owners, that is a huge proportion of non-Tesla EV drivers. I mean, that gives you a really good sense. And I would argue that non-Tesla EVs, and I am an owner of one of them, a Nissan Leaf 2013, 90 miles of range, barely
on a good day.
Good day with a back wind going downhill, are not the premier, are not the best EVs there are.
Right. No.
Right? Because they don't have supercharging. A lot of them have limited charging. So this is really, really good news.
I just wish that AAA had also interviewed Tesla owners so we could compare data.
It would be very interesting, but it is cool to have a non-mixed data set here,
Sure.
At least from a nerd point of view.
It's just that it was fine. I had to dig deep to find that out. So it can be misleading to people who might also assume that was including Tesla drivers. Because, for instance, it might be a lot lower percentage of people who are worried about running out of charge or who have ever run out of charge.
Right.
We just don't know because they haven't included it.
And there might be I know this sounds a little weird, more people who only charge at home with the Tesla because it has such a bigger range. Right. It means that for most of the time, you wouldn't need to do it. Now, of course, the Supercharger network is just so nice. Why wouldn't you use it? Right. So I don't know. It's a very interesting study, and it shows, again, EVs work even when we're not talking about Teslas.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're crazy here.
Nope.
No.
We still might be crazy.
Not about that.
All right, so you might remember this, Jesse. In 2014, Michigan passed a law that said that Tesla could not sell their cars in the state.
Why did they do that?
Well, we know why. The car dealers wanted to stop Tesla, and so they lobbied and wrote the law. Well, in 2016, Tesla sued Michigan, saying that their 2014 law not allowing direct sales to consumers was unconstitutional. So Michigan's Attorney General, Dana Nessel, has now settled with Tesla, and she says any Michigan resident may lawfully buy a Tesla and have it serviced in Michigan.
So why did Dana Nessel just suddenly decide to settle with Tesla?
She was not the one who started this whole thing. It was her predecessor, Republican Bill Shute. He was the Attorney General back in 2014.
Oh, so she wasn't even in office. So
no.
She's just recently been elected.
She was elected in 2019. Let's also remember that the governor who signed this bill, Rick Snyder, who's a Republican, he is no longer the governor of Michigan because he was voted out of office because Governor Gretchen Whitmer became governor in 2019. She's a Democrat. So basically, a lot of politicians have changed place since the law was enacted. And I think what happened was they looked at it and said, yeah, you're probably right. This is unconstitutional. Let's settle.
Right.
So they settled with Tesla. And the settlement now allows for Tesla to sell cars there. Now, under the settlement, cars will have to be titled in a different state and transferred to Michigan. So they basically allowed this loophole. So it's not as simple as it sounds. Basically, you're going to have to title the car in another state. Now, the problem with that is if you title the car in most other states, you'll have to pay that state's sales tax.
And then you'd have to pay Michigan sales tax once you move it over, I'm assuming, right?
Right. So I'm guessing that there's only 5 states in the U.S. where there is no sales tax on cars. That would be Montana, Alaska, Delaware, Oregon, and New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that Tesla is going to set up some kind of, way of doing this through a Tesla subsidiary or something so that they can handle the paperwork for Michigan residents. So that's a pain. Plus, you're going to have to pay a title fee in that state. So you're basically paying more than you should. But at least the loophole allows Michigan residents to get their car. Now, the second loophole is that if you want your car to be serviced in Michigan, Tesla has to set up a wholly owned subsidiary to allow their repair centers to operate under.
Wow.
It's really ridiculous because instead of revamping the law, they're just kind of finding loopholes in the law. So, Michigan, clean this up.
Right.
Get rid of this law. Let's do it right. And let's stop this nonsense. But the good news is the largest population state that had been stopping Tesla is no longer stopping Tesla. Tesla is winning this battle.
Right. And the really exciting thing for me is what is in Michigan? Detroit. Detroit's in Michigan. And for the longest time, all these guys in Detroit, I don't know if they stay in Detroit a lot or what, or if they think that everywhere else is like some kind of fancy land. They probably aren't seeing that many Teslas outside their door. One of the weird things that happened recently was that we saw, Herbert Diess and people like this seem to just switch their minds almost overnight. And it was mostly German automakers. Mm-hmm. And I think what happened was Tesla began their deliveries in Europe of the Model 3. Mm-hmm. And basically there was no there weren't certain sections of Germany that weren't able to do this. There was no Michigan in Germany. And so the Model 3s just proliferated, went everywhere. You see them everywhere. Yep. And I think what happened was they started seeing them and going oh, this is for real. And you're not seeing that in Michigan and in Detroit. And so they haven't caught on yet. And I think that this lawsuit could be a really big stepping point in EVs. Yeah. Because I think that there's going to be a huge surge of Model 3 sales in Michigan now that it's going to be actually possible.
Right.
And I think that a lot of GM and Ford people, they're all going to start seeing these cars around.
Right, because if you couldn't get your car serviced in Michigan, I would be hesitant to buy any kind of car that couldn't have a service center. Right. And so now that you can.
Right. And we've met people in Michigan who own a Model S or Model X, and they were really cool, but they weren't most people in Michigan.
No, right.
So I think that this is going to be huge. Yeah. It's going to be huge. We don't even understand the gravity of this.
I agree. Speaking of gravity, remember a couple weeks ago we told you that as part of the process of prepping the Giga 4 site in Germany, Tesla had to move some bats and search for unexploded World War II bombs? Mm-hmm. Well, after searching the 300-hectare forested site, Tesla found 25 unexploded World War II bombs. That was 85 kilograms or 187 pounds of ammunition.
Oh, no. And they had to blow it up?
Yeah, I guess they had to get rid of it.
So they had controlled explosions in the forest. Wow. I mean, wow, what a sell, you know? Like, that would be a really interesting show on TV, you know, like the shows where they like are looking for houses. Mm-hmm. Bob and Martha are looking for a new place for their gigafactory. They have about 40 million euros that is their budget, and they're trying to look for some land.
Are you looking for some land? We have 300 hectares of perfect land for you. Almost bomb-free, almost bat-free, almost tree-free.
Look, if it were me and I worked for Tesla, I'm sure that I would have more information on this. And so I would probably be like, this decision seems like a good one. There had been a lot of backlash against Tesla opening their factory there. They had been concerned about water. They had been concerned about, you know, like water usage. They had been concerned about cutting down all these trees and the bats. And I mean, no one was really worried about the bombs for some reason. Like, no one was like...
I think that's a given. Like, I think anywhere in Germany where you've got land that hasn't been cleared before, you just have to deal with that problem.
But it turns out that this isn't some, like, ancient historic forest.
No, as Elon tweeted out, he said, sounds like we need to clear up a few things. Tesla won't use this much net water on a daily basis. It's possibly a rare peak usage case, but not an everyday event. Also, this is not a natural forest. It was planted for use as cardboard, and only a small part will be used for Gigafactory 4. And K10 said, thank you. I keep telling people it's a tree farm. And Elon said, exactly. Also, we found out through Elon's tweets, there's also going to be a Berlin design product center. So Tesla owner Silicon Valley said, any idea on what will be built there? Will Europe get a product design center as well? And Elon said,
yes. And Elon went on, he said, Giga Berlin will absolutely be designed with sustainability and the environment in mind.
Yeah, no, I think it's really smart that he's not just trying to export American design around the world. He understands that Chinese design should come from Chinese designers, German design from German designers. Like, that's the way it's always been, and people appreciate that in their cultures. But I will point out, like, the Nissan Leaf, which is a Japanese designed car, the early Nissan Leafs are very bug-like to Americans and kind of poked fun at them because we don't have that same design sensibility, right. Whereas they are probably highly accepted in Japan. Speaking of Japan, Mitsubishi was raided by police. Now, this isn't the Mitsubishi Japan offices. This is their German offices. But the diesel scandal just won't end, it seems. So last week, police raided Mitsubishi offices near Frankfurt, Munich, and other German cities, along with two of their suppliers, Continental and Denso. They were collecting evidence for the latest diesel scandal. Mitsubishi's Europe CEO Bernhard Lois said only 5% of Mitsubishi's sales in Europe are diesel, which begs the question, why not just drop diesel?
Why bother?
Yeah.
It's only 5%. Why would you put yourself through all that? Why would you cheat?
Some sad news, Jesse. Not.
What?
Oil and gas company bankruptcy filings were up 50% in the U.S. and Canada in 2019. There were 42 oil and natural gas company bankruptcies in the U.S. in 2019 compared to 28 in 2018. 208 oil and gas companies have filed for bankruptcy between 2015 and 2019.
Bye. And let's be honest here. I know that a lot of people care about job loss, and I care about job loss too. However, I would argue oil, gas, and coal jobs are
dangerous, unhealthy, unsustainable.
Right.
There's plenty of other jobs in the energy sector that are awesome.
Switching to green energy, just as a little aside, switching to renewable energy will create more jobs than our current energy system.
Exactly. And speaking of renewable energy, let's keep the good news going here. Tesla has lowered the price of solar and started awarding $250 in Tesla credit to the referrer and $250 off their solar cost to the referee. So basically, they've been reintroducing their referral program for solar.
So if you're interested in Tesla Solar, you can use our referral code. You'll save $250 off of your solar installation, and you'll help support the show a whole bunch.
So Jesse, you remember Cruise Automation? They're that autonomous driving company that GM bought. Well, they just unveiled the Origin in San Francisco last week. It's an all-electric, four-seater autonomous ride-sharing vehicle built on a new electric powertrain that's built by GM.
What does it look like?
It looks like this.
That looks like an actual autonomous vehicle.
Pretty cool, yeah?
Wow.
Yeah, it's got a 1 million mile lifespan, they claim. And according to Cruise CEO Dan Ammann, the Origin will cost half of the cost that it takes to make a Tesla Model X. So basically, you can't buy one of these. This is going to be just for ride sharing. And they haven't announced the price of the ride yet, probably because they haven't figured it out. Also, there's no timeline on the production yet. But according to Cruise, if you were to sell your car and just use Origin to get around, let's say, San Francisco, the average San Francisco resident could save $5,000 a year. Dan Ammann says we're on track to crack the superhuman threshold in urban environments and expect to be well past that threshold by the time the Cruise Origin enters production. We're looking at safer roads on day one.
I have no idea how their technology is going to work. I know that they have way fewer miles than Tesla has in terms of data, but if they're able to do it, that's super exciting.
And I mean, if they're so confident that they can drive around San Francisco, which, you know, is one of the tougher cities to drive around, which one's tougher?
Boston?
Okay, true. Anyway, they're confident they can do it. If they can pull it off in a city like San Francisco, I think that's a great starting point. I think that would show the world that autonomous driving cars is a thing.
Yep. So let's talk about the Mercedes EQC. This is their first electric car. It is a SUV. And they introduced it last year. I don't know if do you remember that?
I don't think it's out yet.
Oh, it's out. No, so their goal was to sell 25,000 EQCs last year.
I haven't seen any.
Oh, right. That's because they only made 7,000.
Okay, but still, I haven't seen, 7,000 is a lot. I haven't seen any.
Well, okay, so just to give you an idea, in Germany, according to car registrations, it would suggest that they've only sold about 55...
55,000?
No, 55 units. 55 cars.
Wait, you just said they were going to sell 25,000.
Right. They're not, they didn't.
They couldn't make enough? No one wanted it? I don't understand. It looked like a cool car and the price was like 68,000 starting or something, so that's pretty good.
Well, so they have been having trouble. And so the idea was that they were going to ramp up production this year, but they're cutting that number in half.
Why?
They don't have enough batteries.
They don't have a what?
Batteries?
What?
Batteries. They don't have enough batteries. They didn't make enough batteries for these cars.
Did they not know what makes an electric car work?
I think that they did. They had contracts with Groman Automation.
Oh, the company that Tesla bought.
Yes. And then Tesla bought them.
Oh, and said, you're not going to work for Mercedes anymore.
To cancel all your contracts. So I think that could have been it. I also don't have the most confidence in Mercedes-Benz when it comes to making electric cars.
Yeah, but look at this. They're rolling out the EQS.
So it should be coming out, should be coming out next year. But with all these battery shortages, are they?
A good point. It doesn't matter how good your car looks and what the price is if you can't make enough of them.
And this is the thing that bothers me so much about these traditional auto manufacturers is that they aren't taking battery manufacturing seriously enough, in my opinion.
I think they're waiting for that magical day when the batteries are magic batteries, and it just hasn't happened yet.
It was cute when we were like, oh, this car is coming out in 2020. That's very exciting. That's very cute. And there have been some manufacturers that have made cars.
This proves your point. You talked about this years ago. You said 2020 was used by manufacturers as this date that they could just push things off to, and it didn't mean anything. And that by 2020, they weren't going to have these cars. And here we are. It's 2020, right? I think. Yep, it's 2020.
Yeah. And there are cars. There are some electric cars, some with even, I would say, decent electric cars. The problem is the volumes.
Right.
They're just token cars. If you're not going to produce enough of them and promote them and advertise them, if you're not going to sell enough, then what's the point of even having them? Why not why didn't you focus your energy on something else? Why make them? Why produce them at all? And that's the thing that freaks me out, is we don't have a ton of time here. There are lots of new cars that they're announcing to come out in 2025. It's so you're going to start production in 2025? Now, I'm not saying that EQS, but you're going to start production of some of, there's many other companies in producing cars starting, 2025. It's you're going to start production then?
And that's probably another false date anyway. Hey, and if you're watching stories on this channel and you're like, that'd be great to share, but I can't share an hour-long show, we've got a clips channel. So head on over. The link is down below. And we've cut up most of these stories into bite-sized, short 2 or 3 minute clips that you can share on your Facebook and other social media. All right, it's time for our video contributor stories, and we got 2 this week, and they're both about the same topic from a slightly different perspective. It's about the Model 3 Mudflap kit. Here's Bruce's excellent video.
In early January, I received an email from Tesla informing me of all weather protection kits that were available for pickup at my nearest Tesla service center. I stopped by a few days later and was handed a free box containing a Model 3 Mudflap and Splash Guard kit. At the time of making this video, I understand that this kit is only available to Model 3 owners in Canada and not other wintry places in the northern United States. Why? I don't know, but I can't speculate that in the few years Elon Musk spent studying at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, it probably gave him a personal connection to the road conditions and the large crazy amounts of salt that gets dumped on the roads in that part of the country. In any case, I'm grateful to Tesla for the gesture and decided to install the full kit, including the larger splash guards. The included instructions and illustrations are very helpful and clear, but I found a few challenges with the included bolts. Hopefully this video will help prepare you for them and make your installation easier. Unless you plan to jack up the car and remove the front wheels, you will have to turn the steering wheel to the far left and far right to gain access to the wheel wells. The push clips are easy to remove as shown. After that, you will have to carefully pry the wheel arch liner away from the body as shown. Next, I installed the 2 U-nuts. Make sure they line up with the holes. The bottom rocker panel bolt access cover was removed carefully with a utility knife because I could not see how to fit a pair of scissors in that location as the instructions show. I found it easier to then install the bottom bolt of the Mudflap to hold it in place before installing the wheel well screws. Here's where things became difficult. The kit included 4 metric M6 screws that had a Phillips screw head, which meant having to use a short stubby screwdriver in the limited space available. This was very difficult given the amount of torque needed to thread them into their proper position. The U-nuts are designed to be a high friction fit to keep the screws from vibrating loose. As a result, the Phillips heads became damaged because they aren't really designed for this amount of torque in a cramped position. So I decided to substitute them for hex head screws so I could properly and easily tighten them with a 10mm socket wrench. Shown here are the M6 by 25mm stainless steel screws and extra washers that I purchased from a local hardware store. By the time you do the other front wheel, you'll be an expert at this installation. I hope this video helps you save time and makes your installation easier. Thank you for watching. And if you're curious, please check out my other Tesla-related videos on this channel.
Yeah, so that was an excellent primer on how to do it, and we figured we might as well also show you Patrick's experience installing the Mudflap, because he didn't do it himself. He brought it to an expert.
This is a Mudflap and Splash Guard kit installation. So the undercarriage is in some way now protected from growl spraying onto it, but the splash guard ground clearance is rather low, and it scrapes the ground in many places. Well, I will evaluate the situation for a little longer period to see how it works, having those splash guards scraping the streets here and there all the time. And if I get too annoyed, I might consider to remove them and only use the Mudflap in order to get some higher clearance from the street.
Interesting there. Two different perspectives, and pretty cool that Tesla has come out with a solution to people's problems. It's time for our Patreon bonus stories, and this is where if you want to support the channel, and I hope you do, you can head on over to Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You can feel good about yourself because you're helping us out, and you can get to watch all of this cool bonus material along with all the other cool perks. We'll see you there. Wow, we are back from the Patreon bonus stories. That was a lot of fun, and it's time for our Patreon shout-outs. Who do we got this week, Jess?
We have Matthew Perrin,
Bo Wendland,
Thomas Krupp,
Aaron Bingham,
Daryl Brito,
Matthias Svensson,
Ionas Dufexi,
Bing Hung Bai Bang,
Jaden Paul,
Peter Husband,
Jono,
Greg Davis,
Michael Tucker.
and Thor Slang.
Thank you so much for supporting this channel. We can't do it without you.
All right, it's time for Elon's tweets of the week. We got quite a few here. His first one is improved accommodations. And who's living in this building?
SpaceX. So they just built this giant tent. Wonder where Elon got that idea. To basically build rockets inside of a big tent.
Yeah, that door is 40 feet high.
It's a big door.
And then this is actually a Greta tweet, but I feel like she's right up there with Elon, so of course she should be included. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said last week about Greta, after Thunberg goes and studies economics in college, she can come back and explain that to us. If you look at what the U.S. has been doing on its own without government intervention, industry has gotten a lot more efficient on carbon emissions. We think industry can deal with this on its own. And so Greta said, my gap year ends in August, but it doesn't take a college degree in economics to realize that our remaining 1.5 degrees carbon budget and ongoing fossil fuel subsidies and investments don't add up. Elon tweeted out, want to play the Witcher game on your Tesla? You can already watch the show on Tesla's Netflix theater. And 85% of people said yes. Toss the coin. And following that up, Toby Lee said, Elon, can you add SpaceX version of Kerbal Space Program to Tesla Arcade? And Elon said, by the way, you're seeing that Elon is called Sphere Earthers Rule this week. He's changed his name again. He said it's on the list. And K10 said, no Polytopia? And Elon said, working on it. Sphere Earthers Rule said, we should have a base on the moon and a city on Mars.
That's Elon.
Elon said that, yes. Then Everyday Astronaut said, hey, Elon, small but easy feature request. I'd love the option to label every trip work or personal right there on the screen when you put the car in park. Doing it right when parking and not using a phone app would be amazing. Then let us download a CSV file or something. That's cool. And then Steve Jobs Ghost said, to add to this real quick, a favorite icon for school and the choice for a morning nav on App Target. I drop the kids off at school in the morning, but it auto routes me to work every morning. Evening auto route to home is fine. And Elon said,
Definitely.
So Elon continued, yeah, systems should adapt to most likely destination and anticipate school, then work if that's the owner's preference. What is he talking about?
So he's saying basically to enable a sort of, you have the auto route in the morning and in the evening where it's going to route you from home to work and then from work to home. But if you have a bit more of a complicated route where you're dropping off the kids at school, it's not going to have that. So what he's suggesting is so what Steve Jobs Ghost suggested is to basically have some configurationable options in there to allow you to change it, and Elon said that he would do it. Pretty interesting.
Nick Martin said, please make a Tesla boat. Thanks, Elon. And Happy Rusty said, please make a 10-kilometer Hyperloop tube first.
And Elon said we're working on it.
That is cool. All right, it's time for Community Mail Time.
Community Mail Time.
So, Jesse, check this out. What does this look like?
Is that a Model 3 on Mars? At a Mars base? Do we have a Mars base?
That is Matthew's Model 3, and behind it is the Mars Desert Research Station in Hanksville, Utah. He told us that this is a space analog, Earth-based research station in the pursuit of human space exploration on Mars and beyond. Basically, it simulates Mars on Earth for training purposes. Now, Matthew is training doctors at the University of Colorado to practice medicine on Mars. Elon Musk's foundation has actually donated to this facility in the form of a lunt 100mm refracting telescope named the Musk Observatory. Matthew says, I couldn't resist driving my Model 3 the 4 miles across the Utah desert to get this photo, something normally for 4x4 vehicles. I have a dual motor, and it handled the roads like they were nothing during the wet, muddy spring thunderstorm season. I drove a little further down the road to an ongoing dinosaur dig. I ran into a fellow Tesla owner from Ohio. He was shocked my car made it to the dig site, as their crew had a 4x4 truck that got stuck just hours earlier. He was so pumped to see a Tesla way, way off the grid of normal driving. That seems like a good summer camp, doesn't it? Send your kids to Mars. Is this a new autonomous EV?
No.
Why didn't we have this on the show?
This actually isn't a real autonomous vehicle.
Okay, what is it?
This is just for a commercial or a film. It was seen in Los Angeles along with a film crew. So it could be like a potentially new thing, but basically he said that it was not driving itself autonomously. And the interesting thing is it's the same basic idea as all other autonomous vehicles.
Thanks, Mark. All right, it's time for our on-air question of the week, and we do a show once a month where we do on-air questions with Zach and Jesse uncut. That is on our Patreon, so go join that if you'd like to see that. But Stanimir has a question. New Jersey just passed a law that would give a $25 per mile of range rebate to new EV sales, provided that the MSRP is less than $55,000. Would full self-driving be included in the MSRP? I'm looking to buy a long-range Model 3 with full self-driving, which would be just above that at $55,990. If it does include full self-driving, I guess I could just order the car without FSD and order full self-driving later, although this would run into the risk of FSD price increase while waiting for my car. Thoughts? First thing is, yes, it's going to include, like, whatever you paid for the car, that's what they're going to include.
So I think that you would come under, don't quote me on that, talk to someone who knows what they're talking about, probably talk to a Tesla sales representative. They would probably be able to tell you the most.
But you have a little trick here.
Yeah. So if you buy the car without full self-driving, I think that you would get the rebate. I think you would also pay less in taxes.
Oh, like excise tax.
Right. And
yeah, depending on your municipality, a lot of them charge based on the value that you paid for the car.
So do a little mathy math.
Yeah, talk to an accountant.
And figure out, because it is going to cost more if you buy full self-driving after the fact. Even if the price doesn't go up, the price does go up if you don't buy it with the car.
Right.
So do a little bit of working out as to whether with the
back of the napkin math.
Figure it out.
And then let us know. All right, it's time for the results of our Patreon poll. And the question was, when do you think Tesla will start deliveries of the Model Y?
And most people said February, March, which is
right around the corner.
Soon. And 2 people are Tesla shorts who snuck into our Patreons.
Get out of there.
So Patreon, you got to work on your security.
February, March, that would be a good Valentine's present. All right, it's time for our Supercharger reviews, and this is sponsored by our friends at Evanex. Looking for awesome accessories for your Tesla? Check out Evanex and use our discount code to save you even more.
Hello, Zach and Jesse. This is Bob here at Ehrenberg Supercharger. Just opened last month, so it's recent. You're near Blythe, California, Arizona border, and this is a pretty good supercharger. Here in the background we have a Wendy's and a Cinema Bun and a Flying J, so there's plenty of amenities there. And then back over here we have a hotel. It's a Best Western Hotel. So I'll rate this a 7 out of 10. Just not too many options for eating. I'm sure though it'll be open all 24/7, so that's a good thing. Take care, and now you know.
Hello, Zach and Jesse. This is the first Tesla Supercharger review in Puerto Rico. We just got a 2-stall supercharger, mobile supercharger installed in the metro area, close to shopping center, food, drinks, 24 hours a day, security and access. This is amazing. I would say this is an 11 out of 10. Of course, this is the first supercharger in Puerto Rico, so I'm a little bit biased. Take care, and thank you for all the help and the support of the community. Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome to the 8-stall supercharger in Dow's, Iowa. Really easy to find off the highway. I can see it right off the exit ramp. It's in the Dow's Junction truck stop parking lot, and there's an Arby's attached to it, so place to get lunch. Across the road there is a rest area that looks pretty nice. In the background I can see some wind turbines spinning, so that's nice to see too. Hopefully some of the electricity we're getting here today is coming from those wind farms. There's good proximity, easy to get in and out of the convenience store. I really like the style of this pull-in spot. You can get your vehicle and your trailer quite a ways in there, and then your trailer's not hanging out and blocking all the other spaces. This is a nice stop right off the highway. Not a lot of restaurant options here. If you're just looking for a stop in a convenience store, then this will do fine. Have a great day, and I'll see you at the next one.
I love Supercharger reviews, even though this week there's only 2 new ones. What do we got this week?
We have number 75 in Germany, number 510 in Europe, the 8 stall at Pfaffenhofen in Germany.
And number 755 in the US, number 1772 in the world is the 8 stall Urban, which is only 72 kilowatts, in Rockville, Maryland. All right, it's time for our Patreon giveaway, and this is where you can win an EcoWare t-shirt. Remember, you get the tea, we plant the tree. Because these are carbon negative.
Right, we carbon offset the t-shirt first, and then we plant a tree.
So it's like super carbon negative.
Absolutely.
All right, who's our winner?
Glenn McDonald.
Congratulations, Glenn. You're going to get to pick any EcoWare t-shirt you want. And you made it to the end of the show. If you want to support the show and have a really cool learning experience, go check out Masterclass. It's a way for us to earn money for the show. When you sign up, we get a little commission there. But we're supporting it, and you notice we don't support things unless we believe in them. Masterclass is really, really cool.
Right. Yeah, also, we don't support things unless we think that you'd be interested in them. We have met and talked to a lot of people who watch this show, and we know that you... by and large, are some pretty smart people. Right. And we don't really want to be promoting like a bunch of useless junk to you, because it's just like great, you know. Here's some stuff. Oh, you can buy some kind of, it's a kind of special glove.
Well, most of these companies make you say a certain thing for a certain amount of time. Masterclass does not. We can say whatever we want. I mean, here's the thing. For $200, let's cut to the chase. For $200, you can watch any and all of their lessons. So think about this for a second. Go check out their site. See if you like these people. If these are people you admire and would like to learn from, then think about what it would cost you to learn from these people in like a college environment, or even if you bought like a bunch of their books or something. It would be very, very expensive.
Even if you didn't want to learn from these people, even if you just wanted to go study these things, not just from a regular old professor, are you going to be as inspired to do that? Let me be honest. I went to college, right? I studied a bunch of different subjects, and having a professor who either doesn't care too much about what they're teaching, or who isn't, like Bill Collins or Malcolm Gladwell or, Dan Brown, like not having a really inspiring professor, you don't learn that much.
Also, you got to get up and go to class when they tell you to, whereas with Masterclass, you watch it when you're in the mood to learn. And I got to point out, this is one of the things I don't like about school in general, is you can only learn when your brain is receptive to learning. You got to be happy to learn. Let's be honest. If you're feeling stressed or you're feeling tired, you're not going to learn very well. So being able to turn this on when you're in that particular mood, for you it might be after dinner, or it might be before bed, or early in the morning. That's when you're going to learn.
What are you going to remember? Because that's what you're paying for when you're talking about any of these things. And
also getting to rewind and go back and watch it again. Like there's parts where I get super inspired, but I don't get it all, and I just go back and watch it again.
So I mean, it's inspiring. You're learning from some of the masters in their field. This is truly master class. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, and let's be honest, there's a lot of learning courses you can take out there, but if you're learning from somebody that you don't really know, it's hard to trust them. Whereas these people that Masterclass has hired, for the most part, you know them.
Because you've seen them or you've read their work,
right?
Watched them play sports or guitar. There's all sorts of different stuff. We think that you'd really enjoy it. I think that you'd enjoy it with your family too.
Yeah.
Because no matter who you have in your family, there's going to be someone on there who is going to be interested, who's going to be interesting to someone else in your family. So if you're always what movie are we gonna watch? And it's like, that's a really tough thing. Having Masterclass is just an easy way for people to just sit down, watch something. It's interesting. You have something interesting to talk about later on, either to each other or at a party or whatever. That's why we We chose to get sponsored by them because we think it's a good fit for you guys. If you're interested, you can go check them out at the link down below.
We'll see you next week. Now you know.